In this video, we're going to be looking at some of the mysteries in gangstalking. When you're dealing with the phenomena of group harassment, of gangstalking, there are a lot of things that, they leave you wondering, scratching your head. How? Why? And, the theories are endless. I think that, good old-fashioned experience is really, how you're going to start to figure some of these things out. If you're a new targeted individual, you're probably trying to figure out who to believe, because there is a lot of different explanations out there. And rather than to, push back on this, that, or the other, we're just going to take a look at things in a friendly way, okay? Because, the truth about group harassment, the truth about gang stalking is it can manifest in a lot of different ways. And that's one of the most mysterious aspects of harassment. People experience it from, all different angles. And depending on what you're dealing with, that could be very confusing. Okay, you might go out there and research, someone's channel or some information that would lead you to believe that it's coming from a specific area, maybe a secret society or a government faction, right? But the truth of the matter is it comes from a lot of different areas, and that's when you get into the higher forms of harassment and the logistics. Well, they're very mysterious, right? You may be one of those targeted individuals who is dealing with it in a lot of different places, and there just doesn't seem to be a possible way that these people could be in contact with each other. The collusion option just doesn't seem to logistically match up, and you're going to run into that. I get into the spiritual explanation when it comes down to it. That's what I believe. That's what my experience has led me to, right? Trying to say that all these people, depending on what you're dealing with, are in on some type of government program. Well, I don't know, man. You might not be dealing with something that's that all-encompassing, and you could be dealing with something that's more specific, okay? And in that case, well, you probably have leaned towards that explanation, understandably. But if you're one of those people who have, gone away from where you live or where you started to experience gang stalking, harassment, and run into things that just don't seem logistically possible, right? How are these people communicating? Is there, underground facilities or something, undescript buildings that exist in different areas? Are these people in on something? Wherever you go, there's some type of, operations building or whatever. Are people following you? Is there some type of satellite array that is tracking all of these targeted individuals? And, in real time, they are sending information to their operatives. When it gets down to something like that, I don't know. Like I said, it depends on what you're dealing with. I think something like that could happen. Okay? It could. It could be less than that. It could be, people with some resources that have set up a very elaborate scenario to where you could be gaslighted into believing that more people are involved than really are. And a lot of times that happens, right? And I've talked about that little scenario where you could follow someone and, get information on where they shop, what they're doing, their little schedule, where they're working, and so on and so forth. You could monitor their phone and set things up in restaurants if they plan to go out on a date, and it would just seem like it was everywhere, right? You couldn't get away from it. Oil can Harry out by the trash can seems to know your business when you take out the garbage, but little do you know, it's not really a homeless vagrant looking for cans. It's an operative. It's someone who's been sent to bamboozle you, the random jogger going by your mailbox who is just happening to hit you with some very specific street theater, right? Can be set up. Things like that can be arranged. And people, well, if they're diligent and if they really want it that bad and if they got resources, well, they could do that. But it's not always like that. And even then, you're running into logistical walls. People wonder why. They look around and they speculate about other things. There's another mystery that people, run into, and that is, depending on what you're dealing with, if you're one of those targeted individuals who just kind of was thrust into this nightmare world of gang stalking, well, that can leave you kind of shocked as well. And a lot of people try and get back to, how did I, not see this? How is it that I've been living on this planet for however many years before I experienced this and didn't know anything about it? How is it that other people, don't seem to know? Are they pretending? Right? And that's where it really gets weird too for targeted individuals, because you're going to run into people who they put on a pretty good show, and then later you're going to find out that they were privy to some of this stuff. They knew. And picking out who you can trust, well, it really gets pretty freaky at that point. And you have to realize, if this stuff wasn't hidden, if it couldn't be, obscured and delegated and controlled, well, it just wouldn't work, right? And we've talked about before on this channel how, you have the equation of gang stalking, I think very coincidentally fitting the criteria for mental illness, right? That's something to ponder as well. Which came first? When you get into looking into, different things that involve psychiatry, that gets pretty dark too. So you've got all these little rabbit holes to go down. But getting back to, the fact that it has to be obscured, and that, if everybody was experiencing the same type of gaslighting, and I think people that aren't experiencing gang stalking, well, they're being gaslighted too. They might be enjoying the ride a little bit more. It seems a lot more convenient, right, to just not be subjected to it. But at the same time, they are headed for, in my opinion, the judgment. And, if you have to go through hell to get out of hell, it's worth it, right? Even if you had to go through, a million tribulation periods to get out of one hell, it would definitely be worth it, right? I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but that's just too bad, because that's where I go with a lot of this, answers to this mystery of how this stuff is working. And I'm not saying that everyone is dealing with that. Some of you out there might only be dealing with, a government program or, some type of secret society or an occult situation or a group of people. You might not be experiencing that. And if you're not, you're going to think that's crazy. But of course, people are probably looking at you funny too. So get ready if it happens. And for the people out there that are, like I said, it just wouldn't work. We wouldn't have technical jobs. We wouldn't have surgeons. We wouldn't have, anything out there that was a real high-paying job because everybody would just be paranoid. They would be dysfunctional. Targeted individuals deal with a lot of pressure, and more often than not, that for them to deliver on a higher level like that in a demanding job, it's not possible. And I've talked about how if you are trying to reach out something or reach out into an expert type of profession, well, you might want to put it on the back burner if you're dealing with all this stuff. That's a decision that you're going to have to make. Okay. Going to college to get your master's right now and getting into debt while being a full-fledged, hunted down, targeted individual might not be a good idea. It's just, you might have to rethink that. But not everyone is dealing with the same thing. So there's other people, obviously, in your life that don't know anything about this stuff. Okay, and it has to be that way. It has to be that way to keep it hidden, and it has to be that way to blind people to what's really going on. When this whole crisis that we're dealing with emerged, people believed every word that they heard about this, and as the disinformation came, tumbling at them, they started to question. If all this stuff was, real, first it started in an open market and, it came from a cave. And then the next thing we find out that we were funding it in a lab over in Wuhan. And, there's other things that are going on that are very inconsistent. And, when people start to wake up to that reality, that really tells you what's going on, and it's experiential. Okay. There's, the majority of people out there who believe, that people who experience this are literally mentally ill. And unfortunately, a lot of targeted individuals become affected by this stuff to the point of dysfunction, and it just bolsters the whole thing. It's the perfect crime, literally. You get somebody to look crazy, and then you literally drive them crazy, and nobody believes them. It's insane. And speaking of things that make you look crazy and that are insane, some of the phenomena that targeted individuals deal with is just beyond, right? You have synchronicities, you have street theater, little games that would almost imply that people have foreknowledge. Things are set up in advance, and I've talked about that in my videos where you're dealing with time dilation. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure it's something like that. Okay, and we know what happens when someone is closer to the center of gravity. You can set two watches, and the person farther away is going to experience time differently. It's really the only plausible explanation. If you're dealing with different dimensions, well, the possibilities open up to where that could be, who knows, hundreds of years, decades, whatever. You can do the math on that one. That's really what I believe it is. And, especially if you're one of those kids who's dealt with the occult, or someone who's been exposed to, different types of prophetic utterances and stuff like that. We have prophecy that's biblical and so forth. But when it comes from a source outside of that, you have to know what you're dealing with. And rather than to, look at it as something that is coming from God or that he planned or whatever, you're dealing with, just a different perspective. You don't want to look at it as magic. And it can really freak people out. It's part of that shock and awe campaign, and it deceives a lot of people. I've talked about that with secret societies, whether it's Rosicrucians or the Freemasons or the Illuminati or, something goes back all the way to Egypt. You're dealing with that. Guys, enjoy the mysteries. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.